Earthjustice is a national environmental law organization that advocates on behalf of communities and tribes, Native American tribes, and also larger environmental organizations. So we advocate both in the courthouse by bringing lawsuits, but also before agencies, in regulatory proceedings, and then through legislation and policy work as well. So a really multifaceted effort that reflects the challenges of advocating on behalf of the communities and causes that we advocate on behalf of. I'm in the Community Partnerships Program. So you can think of Earthjustice as broken up into several different programs. So they're broken up either by region. So for example, there's a California office that works on California-focused issues. And then there are other programs that are more focused on either specific issues, like specific ways of practicing advocacy. The Community Partnership Program falls into that latter bucket of kind of a framework of how to advocate. So we work really closely, hand in hand with communities to address really harmful sources of pollution in their neighborhoods. So that's what brought me to work with Jaime and Neighbors Against Phibro-Tech, and also working with other communities like Clean Air Coalition challenging the hazardous waste permit for Quemeco. For me in particular, I've been working at Earthjustice, I think, for a little more than 6 years. So I grew up in Orange County, just south of Los Angeles. So it's always been my dream to live and work in Los Angeles. Before I started at Earthjustice, environmental law had always interested me, but I had thought about environmental law more in I guess you could call it like a traditional sense. I thought of environmental law as trees and mountains and rivers and wildlife, but I never thought fully about environmental law as a tool of civil rights, for example, or social justice. I started at Earthjustice through a fellowship program, and I worked with attorneys at Earthjustice who I work with now, so like Angela Johnson-Mazaros, for example, or Adrian Martinez or Oscar Espino-Padron, and they were practicing environmental justice law, and their advocacy was focused exclusively on impacted communities and what it meant to live in a certain type of environment rather than an environment that you go out to, on the weekends to kind of escape the city. Instead, an environment that you experience when you open your window, for example, and breathe in the air, or you turn on your faucet and you drink the water. So something that was really inescapable. That experience completely transformed my vision of environmental law and also transformed my vision of what I wanted to dedicate my life to. After that fellowship ended, I went to work at a law firm, and it was more just like a traditional law firm until I saw a job opening at Earthjustice. At that time, I applied to work and was lucky enough to get that position. So I've been at Earthjustice ever since, getting to work with the attorneys who originally inspired me to do this work. It feels like fate in some ways, and at the same time, it feels like there was a lot of chance opportunities that just happened to happen. Just really grateful that I've been able to be here and work with the folks, not only at Earthjustice, but also the communities that I've been able to work with. Has just been an incredible experience. And we're always following the lead of our community partners. In the example of Phibro-Tech, the community has been, is continually and has been impacted by this harmful hazardous waste facility. And the goal of our work, of the community's work, is to shut down this facility. So with that goal in mind, there are, as you can imagine, endless ways to potentially achieve that goal. It might be by passing a law in Sacramento. It might be through a regulatory effort before the Department of Toxic Substances Control, DTSC, or it might be through a lawsuit. Even like what the work you're doing, for example, is a way of working towards shutting down Phibro-Tech, right? Bringing awareness, building grassroots movement. All of that is contributing. So ultimately, I'm not an organizer. I'm not in the community. I'm not on the ground, but I can provide hopefully some type of support, whether that's legal in bringing a lawsuit or regulatory in writing a letter, or through communication tools, right, in developing a communications campaign, bringing resources that might amplify the work of the community in raising awareness, or just reaching folks that might be more difficult to reach, like political decision makers, in the ultimate service of, for example, in Phibro-Tech shutting down the facility, or might be passing a rule or passing a law. But you're trying to solve a puzzle. But the ultimate goal is shared by us and the community, which is to complete the puzzle. But in this case, it's not completing a puzzle, it's shutting down a facility. A lot of the communities we work with, like Neighbors Against Phibro-Tech or Clean Air Coalition, are made up of volunteers. You know, people in those organizations have full-time jobs. And it's an unfortunate burden that agencies place on these community members to then have to work a full-time job and then also read, a health risk assessment and try to understand it. So I am in the really lucky position where it's my full-time job to be able to do that, and then hopefully share some of the information that I receive from my review to communities, make the legislative or the administrative process more accessible to them. In my experience, what I've seen is that you're absolutely right. It's a pattern. These aren't one-off situations, and it's because this pattern is built into the very structure of our society. If we want to go back to like the founding of our country and the Constitution and the founding of our states, was the law that was established was really meant to protect three things. It was meant to protect power, privilege, and property, right? And it wasn't meant to protect people. So because of that structure in the law, that structure translates into how agencies operate, which is they are meant to protect that structure, right? And to maintain the status quo as much as possible. And because power, privilege, and property are at the very foundation of our society, these agencies that we confront, in particular DTSC, are not unbiased organizations who are trying to protect people. Instead, basically, they are meant to protect power, property, and privilege. And you see that, for example, in the permitting process, right? Where the permitting process at DTSC, the department might put some protections in a permit and acknowledge the harms that the facility has and will incur on surrounding communities. But the permitting process is ultimately meant to give a facility a permit, right? It's that's the ultimate goal. There's never the idea that they would, rarely the idea that they would deny a permit, because that would really run counter the whole foundation of the agency's existence. And going back to, for example, power, privilege, and property, these agencies then get captured by the industries that they are supposed to regulate, simply because, for a lot of reasons, but one of the main reasons is these industries have full-time staff who pressure the department to act to the benefit of the industry rather than surrounding communities. So, for example, Quemeco has lobbyists in Sacramento that are there every day, right, pressuring the department and pressuring legislators to support their money-making endeavors, and to limit the protections that would otherwise, that surrounding communities are really entitled to. Not only lobbyists, but they have huge legal teams as well. So basically, the department knows that if it does anything to upset Phibro-Tech, for example, that Phibro-Tech is going to sue the department. And the department is going to face an onslaught of litigation. So all of that is to say that the structure is built up so that folks at the department are meant to feel very small, right? And they are disincentivized from taking what they would see as bold action. Because they know if they stick their neck out for anything, they're going to get attacked by the industry. And for far too long, that's been the case. And in response, you see these incredible organizations like Neighbors Against Phibro-Tech and Clean Air Coalition say, well, DTSC, we have attorneys now too, right? So you're going to get sued by someone. Do you want to get sued by community members and you want to stick with us, or do you want to stand on the side of industry and get sued the other way? So a lot of our work is trying to level the playing field because it's so unlevel right now, and provide space for agencies like DTSC to live out their mission. Any change would take a long time because, again, that change is butting up against, it's not just butting up against a single permit or a single facility. It's really challenging the very structure that we are living in. So there's a lot of vested interests in that structure who are benefiting from that structure and will push back strongly against any effort to change it. So I think with our work, you really need to have long-term vision, and you also might need to define change or describe change a little bit differently, right? For example, it might not be that you will change the entire system through one permit decision, right, or through one lawsuit, but that permit decision or that lawsuit is like the first building block of change that will then allow for another building block and another building block. And ultimately, the weight from all those building blocks will be enough to create some type of change.